This is what additives are hiding inside every bottle of wine at your local grocery store, and I'm willing to bet you've never seen a single ingredient list on any of them. That's because there isn't one. Every bottle of orange juice, every can of soup, even bottled water in America is required by law to tell you what's inside. Wine doesn't play by those rules. The FDA doesn't regulate it. Wine falls under the TTB, the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, under 27 CFR Part 24, to be specific. And they've decided winemakers don't need to disclose ingredients. Over 70 additives are legally approved for use in American winemaking. Not one of them has to appear on the label. So I went to 10 of the biggest stores in America, pulled their most popular wines off the shelf, and cross-referenced what we know about their producers, their sourcing, and the studies that have actually tested what's inside these bottles. Only 3 stores were selling wine I'd call clean. The rest were hiding things you need to hear about. Let's start with what's actually in your wine, because this list is going to make you uncomfortable. Beyond grapes, yeast, and sulfites, American winemakers can legally add dimethyl dicarbonate. That's a sterilizing chemical so toxic it has to be handled by workers in full hazmat suits. It supposedly breaks down before you drink it, but the fact that it's there at all tells you something about how this wine gets made. Powdered tannins go in to fake the mouthfeel of an aged wine. Gum arabic changes the texture. Mega purple goes in too, and we're going to talk about that one later because it deserves its own conversation. Winemakers can find their product with isinglass from fish bladders, casein from milk or egg whites, and none of that has to be disclosed even if you have allergies. Copper sulfate, oak extract, various acids, commercial yeasts engineered for specific flavor profiles, all of it goes in. The wine industry has turned winemaking into food engineering, and they've done it without telling you a thing. Now here's how I approach this. I didn't send bottles to a lab. What I did was pull from every major study, every pesticide report, and every industry investigation that's tested American wine over the past 10 years. The biggest one came from Moms Across America's March 2016 study, conducted by Microbe Enotech Lab of St. Louis. They tested 10 wines from major California producers and found glyphosate, the active ingredient in Roundup, in every single sample. Not some, all of them. Conventional wines showed levels as high as 18.74 parts per billion. And here's the part that shocked even the organic crowd. The organic wines they tested still had trace amounts, around 4.6 parts per billion, most likely from pesticide drift blowing in from neighboring conventional vineyards. A separate study from the Pesticide Action Network, a global coalition of over 600 organizations that monitors agrochemical use, tested 40 bottles and found residues in 100% of conventional samples. Some of those bottles carried residues from multiple different pesticides stacked on top of each other. For context, the Wine Institute, the industry's own trade group, pushed back on these findings by claiming you'd need around 2,500 glasses of wine daily for 70 years to reach EPA concern levels. I'll let you decide what to do with that math. With all of that as our baseline, let's walk through the stores. Pay attention here, because this isn't about individual brands. This is about where you shop and what that store's supply chain actually prioritizes. Walmart, the largest grocery retailer in America, and their wine selection reflects exactly what you'd expect from a company built on volume and margin. Their house labels, things like oak leaf and winemaker's selection, come from massive operations designed to move millions of units at the lowest possible cost. At that scale, you're almost certainly looking at the full additive toolkit: commercial yeasts, color correction, powdered tannins, acid adjustments, all of it. When wine gets made at commodity prices, the grape itself becomes secondary to the chemistry that keeps it shelf-stable and consistent. Walmart's wine aisle is built for convenience, not transparency. This one did not pass. Kroger comes next. It's the largest traditional supermarket chain in the country, and the wine wall looks a lot like Walmart's, with slightly more variety. Mostly conventional mass-market brands, very little organic representation. Kroger's house brand wines follow that same industrial production model. High volume, low cost, maximum shelf life. The sourcing favors consistency over quality, which tells you the additive list is likely extensive. You can dig around and find a few organic bottles, but they're buried. They're not what most shoppers reach for. Kroger did not pass. Safeway tells the same story with a different logo. Safeway Select wines and the broader conventional selection follow the supermarket playbook almost identically to Kroger. Standard supply chain, standard production methods, standard additives. Nothing about their wine program suggests any real commitment to clean production or ingredient transparency. Safeway didn't pass either. Now, Sam's Club is where people get confused, because they assume it's basically the same thing as Costco. It's not. Sam's Club is owned by Walmart, and their wine program carries that DNA. Members Mark house wines are conventional, volume-driven products with a narrower selection than Costco and less adventurous sourcing. The emphasis sits squarely on price. Buying Members Mark wine means buying Walmart's supply chain in a different building. Sam's Club did not pass. 4 stores down and none made the cut. Let's move to the middle, the stores that got some things right, but still left me with questions. Target has been quietly expanding their wine selection, and they deserve credit for carrying some organic options. Their private label wines are relatively new, clearly aimed at a younger, more health-conscious shopper. But the majority of shelf space still goes to conventional brands, and the organic section stays small enough that most people walk right past it. Target is heading in the right direction. They're just not there yet. Aldi gets more nuanced. They have a genuine advantage most American grocers don't. A big portion of their wine comes from Europe, and starting in December of 2023, EU Regulation 2021-2117 requires ingredient labeling on wine. That means the bottles Aldi imports from European producers were made under stricter transparency standards than anything produced here at home. Their exquisite collection has won awards, and the European sourcing means fewer of those additives American producers lean on. But Aldi also stocks plenty of conventional domestic wines that don't meet that standard. It's a split shelf. The inconsistency kept them just outside the top 3. Trader Joe's is the one everyone asks about. $2 Chuck, Charles Shaw wine, comes from the Bronco Wine Company, which owns over 45,000 acres of vineyard land and produces more than 60 domestic wine brands, making it the 4th largest wine producer in America. At that scale and that price point, you're looking at full industrial production. Commercial yeasts, acid adjustments, likely color correction. But here's what people miss. Trader Joe's wine program runs much deeper than Charles Shaw. They carry bottles in the $8 to $15 range from smaller producers, and some of their European imports are genuinely well made. The problem is you get zero transparency about which ones are clean and which aren't. Every bottle is a gamble. Trader Joe's didn't pass, but it came closer than you'd think. Now let's talk about the 3 that actually earned it. Costco, the single largest wine retailer in the United States, and their program is genuinely different from everyone else on this list. Kirkland Signature wines are the best-selling wine brand by volume in America, but Costco does something unusual with their sourcing. Their higher-tier Kirkland wines, the ones in the $12 to $20 range, often come from well-regarded producers, including E&J Gallo Winery, the largest wine producer in the United States, who make wine under the Kirkland label at a fraction of what they'd charge under their own name. The sourcing runs more selective, the production standards sit higher, and Costco's buying power lets them demand quality without blowing up the price. Their organic and sustainably produced options keep expanding too. You still want to skip the very cheapest bottles, but Costco's mid-range Kirkland wines offer some of the cleanest options at any mainstream retailer. Costco passed. Whole Foods comes as no surprise, but it's worth understanding why. They maintain stricter quality standards for their wine program than any other grocery chain in the country. Their 365 house brand wines tend toward fewer additives and more transparent sourcing. The store carries one of the biggest selections of organic, biodynamic, and natural wines you'll find outside a specialty shop. The natural wine movement, which prioritizes native yeasts, zero additives, and minimal sulfites, has a stronger foothold here than almost anywhere else in mainstream retail. They run an internal rating system that flags wines made with minimal intervention. Prices are higher, and that's the trade-off. But if your priority is knowing what's actually in your glass, Whole Foods is the most reliable grocery option out there. Whole Foods passed. Total Wine, the only specialty retailer on this list, and that distinction matters. They carry the widest selection of any store we looked at, stretching from mass-market conventional bottles all the way to certified organic, biodynamic, and natural wines. This is the one store where you can consistently find producers using native yeast, zero additives, and minimal sulfites. The caveat is, they also stock plenty of conventional wine, so you can't grab blindly. But if you know what to look for, and after this video you will, Total Wine puts more clean options under one roof than any other retailer in America. Total Wine passed. 3 out of 10, that's the number. Only 3 stores out of the 10 biggest wine retailers in the country give you a realistic shot at buying clean wine. And even at those 3, you have to know where to look. Now, I promised we'd come back to Mega Purple, and this is the part the wine industry really does not want you hearing. Mega Purple is a hyper-concentrated grape juice made from a variety called Rubiard, a Teinturier grape. meaning it produces deeply pigmented red juice rather than just colored skins. Rubeard was developed by Dr. Harold Olmo at UC Davis back in the 1950s, originally bred for exactly this kind of extreme color concentration. The VA Dell Company in Fresno, California, manufactures Mega Purple, and it was originally developed under a subsidiary of Constellation Brands, one of the world's largest wine conglomerates, before VA Dell took over production. Winemakers across the country use it to make cheap wine look expensive. A tiny amount, sometimes just a teaspoon per barrel, transforms a thin, pale, poorly made wine into something that looks dark, rich, and velvety in the glass. Some insiders say the real number runs much higher. You'll find it mostly in wines under $15 to $20, but it's shown up in bottles priced above $50. And because of that labeling exemption we talked about at the top, nobody has to tell you it's there. You could be drinking it tonight and you'd have no idea. Sit with that for a second. The wine industry built a system where they can fundamentally change the color, taste, and appearance of their product using concentrated additives, and they carry zero legal obligation to mention any of it. Every other food product in America lives by different rules.